All right, fellas, I know it's Syracuse week, but next week's game at Wake Forest has already been scrapped, and Notre Dame has clinched a bid in the ACC championship game, giving them an extra week to prepare for it. Tim O'Malley, in what ways does the cancellation help the Irish the most?
Well, I think it helps them more than Clemson, who we assume will be playing. I think Kyron Williams, 150 more carries than we thought he might get when it was July, and we were looking at this football team, the offensive line with injuries to Zeke Correll. As Tim Priester reported, Josh Lugg is battling a back injury. That's going to help him have a week off to work with that. Tommy Crane will be back healthy. I think it really helps Notre Dame because while Clemson was the injured team somewhat coming into November 7th, Notre Dame is probably the more worn down team right now, just for what they've had to go through in a really tough November. And I think it's huge that they're off because Wake Forest would make them play. They would beat Wake Forest, but Wake Forest would make them play almost the full 4 quarters, I believe. And this helps Notre Dame going to that ACC championship game.
Priester, let's say loses that ACC championship game. Do they still make the college football playoff?
I think they do. Now, if we're talking about 30-3, like 2 years ago in the Cotton Bowl, that puts a different slant on it. And then you have to factor in the Cincinnatis and the Ohio States and teams like that, which the College Football Playoff Committee is going to have its hands full trying to decipher everything and make a decision that everybody can agree upon. But I think all things being equal, I think Notre Dame's put itself in a position to be included, even if they lose to Clemson. I expect Notre Dame to play competitively. I don't expect anything like 2018. I think Notre Dame makes the playoffs even with a loss to Clemson in the ACC championship.
O'Malley, we've seen the rumors about Clark Lee to Vanderbilt this week. We've also seen the Vanderbilt AD talk about wanting an offensive-minded coach. I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. I want you to pick which one's going to actually happen. Clark Lee to Vanderbilt, Clark Lee, a head coach at another school, Clark Lee stays at Notre Dame.
I think B is the least likely. I think he would take the job, A, if offered. I think Notre Dame fans agree with Vanderbilt's athletic director that they want an offensive coach so they can have Clark Lee back in South Bend. I feel Clark Lee, because I said that because of that comment, I think Clark Lee will be back for another year. I don't think it's a terrible thing if he leaves because being a head coach before coming back and potentially replacing Brian Kelly would be a great thing for Clark Lee. I am not normally the coach in waiting guy at all. Might make an exception with Clark Lee. He's a remarkable coach and he really fits the program. This is a guess. My guess is after those comments that he will end up at Notre Dame for another year, but can't hold on to him forever at this court. He's a guy that deserves to lead a program.
Now, Tim Priester, 4 years ago, Notre Dame was 4-8. Since then, the Irish are 42-6. First off, did you think a turnaround like that was possible? And second off, what made it possible?
How do you imagine 42-6? Unless you're Alabama and Clemson, that doesn't happen very often. You go back to the Lou Holtz days when it happened at Notre Dame. So 42-6 is pretty extreme. How it happened, I give a lot of credit. I give basically all the credit to 2 people in particular. It's Jack Swarbrick having the patience to not pull the trigger on firing Brian Kelly, which a lot of people wanted. And then I give Brian Kelly all the credit for changing who he was. You know, people talk about the purple-faced Brian Kelly on the sideline. That was 100 years ago now. He changed his persona with his players, the way he carries himself, the way he handles himself on the sideline during a game. Players were tuning him out. They don't tune him out anymore now because he's one of them. They've accepted him.
It's really been a remarkable turnaround. Now, Tim O'Malley, take us back 4 years ago to that recruiting class. Was that expected, and do we put too much value into how many stars a recruit has and not as much into position coaching?
Well, we definitely put too much value into how many stars one recruit has. In other words, if you're going to judge one player by his stars, it's a crapshoot. However, it's better to have 10 5-stars than it is to have 10 4-stars than it is to have 10 3-stars. But those are separate arguments. That class is the 42-6 class. If you think about that, those freshmen coming in, and they have gotten so much mileage from the lower rated guys. Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, Kurt Heinisch. These are players that are national championship level players. It's a unique class, and it's one Notre Dame fans are always going to remember.
Tim Priester, this is a short and simple question, but I don't think it's a short and simple response. Who's the Irish MVP in 2020?
Oh boy, the 2 best players with the greatest future, of course, Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa. and Kyle Hamilton. MVPs, I'm kind of torn. I'm going to split it, or I'll say that they'll share it. Notre Dame is not in this position if Ian Book suddenly doesn't take the step up against Clemson and what he's done the last 3 weeks, even going on the road to North Carolina. If Ian Book's playing the way he did his first 29 starts, I'm not sure that they necessarily come out of that with a victory, but he's got to share it with the offensive line. This offensive line has been spectacular.
Now we got score predictions. Tim O'Malley, we'll start with you. What's going to happen on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the only thing that keeps this score down a little for Notre Dame is the need to stay healthy, to get Kyron Williams some rest, to get the offensive linemen that are healthy some rest. So you may see by the last drive of the third quarter a whole new look offensive line. So I am keeping it in the 41-6 range, maybe as low as 35-6.
TP, what about you?
Yeah, I think, certainly there are reasons for Notre Dame not to be at its peak for this game. Senior day sometimes contributes to that. Syracuse is bad, man. I'm telling you, this is a bad football team. The biggest disparity is they can't convert on third down. They're 124th in the country, and Notre Dame doesn't let anybody convert on third down. They're third in the country defensively. So I see a little bit lower scoring. I definitely like the under here. I'm right around O'Malley's number. I'm taking Notre Dame 38-6 over Syracuse.